3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I'm Chief Analyst and Channel Master of the organization responsible for the show. I am joined, as I am every week except the weeks when I'm not here, by your other co-host. His name is Eric Simpson. He's our Chief Strategist at Channel Master. Eric, how you doing?
Doing well, Rich. Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing much better. Thank you very much. We are not going to get into the weeds of why I kind of disappeared for a little while there on our audience and also on my audience, the audience for my blog, Channelholic. There were some personal issues going on there. They were difficult, but they are mostly, not entirely, but mostly behind me now, and I am super excited and happy to be back at it.
Well, Rich, we are glad to have you back. Awesome.
Well, let's dive into our story of the week. In terms of things I'm always super excited and happy to be diving into, how about research studies? There was an interesting one published this week as we record this by Barracuda. It's their 2025 MSP Customer Insight Report. Given that this is from Barracuda, there's a real sort of security emphasis to it. All sorts of interesting data points in there, but a few in particular that I think are significant and worth talking about a little bit on the show here, Eric. So what Barracuda did is they went out with this survey to 2,000 IT and security decision makers at organizations, end user organizations with between 50 and 2,000 employees. So they're in the SMB zone there, but small businesses and mid-sized businesses as well. And they asked them, do you or do you not rely on an MSP for your security needs, security support? 61% of the companies with between 50 and 100 employees said, yes, we use an MSP for security support. 85% of the respondents with between 1,000 and 2,000 end users said they use an MSP for security support, a significantly larger number. It's interesting. So this is the first of two kind of big points coming out of the study that I want to emphasize. And one is 5 years ago, co-managed IT was this sort of up and coming, interesting sideshow in managed services. It was something that people were beginning to experiment with. Much more recently than that, it was still something in conversations with MSPs where people kind of said, we're getting there, we're introducing that. Here's some more data from the Barracuda study. They asked these IT departments, are you co-managing or working directly with an MSP on managed services? 49% of the respondents to the survey said that, these are MSPs they were talking to. 49% of the MSPs Barracuda surveyed said that they're just kind of doing IT for customers on their own. 37%, though, said they're doing co-managed IT. So, still a pretty good sized gap between 49% doing things the old way and 37% mostly doing things in the co-managed model. But that co-managed number is up 17% year over year, whereas the other number was just up 6%. So co-managed IT is already kind of pulling even with the more traditional we do it all ourselves model, and gaining on it all the time. And when end users were asked, why are you outsourcing security to an MSP, it begins to add another dimension to the data here. And the number one item, there's a big long list of reasons why you might be doing this, and most of them got a reasonable percentage of the audience responding. But the number one item on the list was lack of internal resources to manage the growing number of security tools we've acquired. So the top issue is we have an increasingly complex stack of security technologies in-house. We don't have the people to manage it all, so we're outsourcing that to an MSP. By comparison, so 52% agreed with that. Only 42% agreed with the idea, well, we outsource everything to our MSP, so of course, we outsource security as well. This tells you that security is a specialized and specific use case that businesses, and as we just saw, especially mid-sized businesses, somewhat larger businesses are looking for. And there is more evidence in this report, Eric, that what end users are increasingly looking for from their MSP is a little bit more sophisticated than just the old outsource my IT department function. Um, 51%, so the number one item on that list I was just referring to, 52% said it's the complexity of the stack. 51%, so number two item on the list is they need help from an MSP to evolve their security strategy. So again, it's not bits and bytes, keep the lights on. It's like we need strategic insight on security from somebody outside the company. And a similar kind of number, there was some talk about, what do you want or need now from an MSP, and what do you want or need or anticipate wanting or needing 2 years down the road. 39% of the organizations surveyed expect that they're going to need support from an MSP with AI and machine learning. Again, leading edge technology, sophisticated. This is not keep the servers running and the endpoints running. This is more in that consultative, strategic kind of mode. And there was another really interesting table in here where they were asking people, how much more would you pay an MSP for this kind of strategic consultative advice? 35% of the people in the survey said we would pay up to 25% more for an MSP who could help with cyber risk and resilience planning. 35% as well said we would pay up to 25% more for an MSP who can help us measure cybersecurity ROI. 33%, they would pay up to 25% more for help with presenting the case for cybersecurity investment to the upper management, the C-suite, business owners, et cetera. And 36% would pay up to 25% more for help with AI and machine learning. And by the way, very similar percentages in each of the cases I just listed for you said that they would pay up to 10% more. So we're talking about 2/3-ish of the survey sample willing to pay double digits for companies that can provide this more sophisticated, more demanding kind of assistance than what we traditionally think of in relation to managed services. And so this is not exactly new to us, Eric. The idea that if you want to remain competitive in managed services going forward, you got to get more strategic, you got to get more consultative, you've got to get more specialized. But this really does kind of call out the degree to which that's true today and rapidly getting more true tomorrow.
Yeah, these are really, really interesting statistics, and it kind of quantifies what we've been feeling, just kind of taking, anecdotal conversations and less formal kind of polling and surveys of MSPs. I had no idea until I was kind of diving in, preparing for the story of the week here, just what a large percentage of these 1,000 to 2,000 employee size organizations are depending on MSPs for cybersecurity. 85%. That number blew me away compared to organizations of between 50 to 100 employees, 61% relying on MSPs for that cybersecurity. So I find a lot of parallels, Rich, between what these larger organizations are kind of struggling with, along with what the MSPs themselves are struggling with. So it's interesting because the MSPs are also trying to reduce technology sprawl in their own organizations. I think one of the call-outs here in the survey was these enterprises are trying to get a handle on their technology sprawl. I saw another stat that I don't know if you mentioned or not, but 92% of organizations are willing to pay a premium for advanced support in integrating their cybersecurity tools. So for those MSPs that are out there wondering, should I be, more directly competing for co-managed IT services, yes, that trend is that opportunity is increasing. But like you said, Rich, very specifically, the fastest growing opportunity is in cybersecurity and specializing in that discipline. And I was going to ask you, what about AI? Because I think that's the next one behind cybersecurity. I'm curious how many of these larger organizations, mid market to enterprise organizations, would value an outsourced expert in helping them integrate and properly govern AI and data and things like that as well. I think this is great news for MSPs. I think it's great news for larger organizations that are realizing that they simply can't find or hire enough folks internally or justify the costs because of the expertise, and now are more willing and apt to engage with an outsourced MSP to deliver these services instead of being seen as, traditionally, historically, in the old days, I'll say, competing and fearing that, the MSP is going to come in and take over my job and exit me in some form or fashion. Now they're seeing MSPs as that strategic, value, as long as the caveat would be for me, Rich, the MSPs are behaving in a more strategic manner, are able to position these services. I mean, the other thing is help presenting the value of strengthening our cybersecurity posture to our C-suite. Can you help us present this to our leadership, MSP? I mean, how the tables are turning, huh?
Yeah, and in terms of your caveat there, I mean, so what this research is showing the folks in our audience is sort of the way forward. If you are concerned about the commoditization of the services that you've been delivering in the past, and if you're not, you should be, because the traditional MSP model is already and growing increasingly commoditized. If you're looking for the way to move forward, it is getting into the more demanding, more strategic forms of services, whether that's the technology / business consulting, advanced cybersecurity, or AI and machine learning. 39% of the organizations surveyed by Barracuda said they anticipate needing help from their MSP in AI or machine learning in the next 2 years, and 36% will pay up to 25% more. So, I mean, the demand is out there if you know how to meet it. And this is a growth vehicle for your business at a time when margins are going to be declining on a lot of what MSPs have traditionally done in the past.
Rich, are you calling the commoditized MSP model the break fix of the future, as we have to now evolve into this new generation of strategic MSP, managed, information provider, managed security provider type of an evolution?
That is a provocative thought, Eric. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but I'm right on the edge, basically. Do you want to be the last person out of the commoditized managed services tent? Just like, did you want to be the last person out of the break fix tent? 25 years ago when you were one of those managed services pioneers.
Right. To be continued then.
Yeah. Well, to the extent that you are adding some of these more advanced services that we've been talking about here, that's going to be an upsell and eventually a cross-sell opportunity for your customers, which I think leads us into your tip of the week, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for that great intro, Rich. So, yes, I think that from a business growth perspective, in my, let's call them my immature years as a struggling MSP, we were always focused on bringing on that new client, that new logo. Like, we were finding revenue by selling kind of the easiest things that we had to sell to more prospects and customers. And over time, Rich, we matured to the point where we said, well, wait a minute, we're leaving a lot of money on the table because we're not going deeper and wider with our existing clients to get them to subscribe to more and more of our existing services. So that service penetration percentage per client was pretty low. So we came up with this idea that we called the Client Solutions Roadmap. And the idea behind that, Rich, was it was an Excel spreadsheet, very in its most basic form before we started really evolving it over time. And it's become one of our, most requested downloads that we've ever given away since, because it allows you to list all of your clients down the first column of the spreadsheet, and across the top, all of the different services and solutions that client would ever need in running their business, whether they're buying it from you or not, or getting it from a third party. I'm talking about not just technology services and solutions, security services and solutions, Rich, backup, but things like accounting services and, payroll services, printer copier services, like all these other adjacent services where we would go out and find other preferred vendors who would, wink, wink, pay us a referral fee or some kind of a revenue share, which we did not hide from our clients. Like, these are preferred vendors because we have a strategic relationship with them. We make sure that they deliver services according to our specifications, and we'll manage that relationship for you moving forward, Mr. or Mrs. Client. So the idea here became not only to identify all these services, but identify what we would charge those users based upon things like user count or license count or other things. And so now we were able to forecast how much revenue we were collecting from the clients that actually were consuming some of these services. So we call it the red light, green light form after a while, because if they didn't have the service, they would be red. If they did, it would be green. And then we could tell how much revenue we were not receiving from them by not introducing that service to them and selling it to them. So that was our very rudimentary way of figuring out how much deeper we could penetrate our existing clients with these additional services. Again, whether we deliver them directly or not. Obviously, we led with the things that we could do. And then when we saw needs, we would bring these vendors in. And we never, positioned those relationships with our clients, Rich, as, you've got to sign up for our preferred vendor. We would always say, look, here's different options. We tend to work with this vendor, but we would give them, when needed, different quotes, especially for like things like circuits and things like that, which could have some, it could be a variance of 10% either way on what that cost would be. But we would always, let clients know that we have a great relationship. If anything goes wrong, we'll manage it. So there was no kind of, behind the scenes secret handshake stuff going on. It was all above board. And so the tip of the week is really, first of all, is increasing your cross-sell and upsell opportunities. Track that service penetration per existing client with your existing clients. If you're an MSP that has 50, 100, 200 clients, I'll bet you $1 that you've got clients in there that are not paying you, number one, what you would charge a brand new client you signed up tomorrow for some of these services. So first there's a true up, and then there's a going wide and saying, okay, what are the required services that I require every new client to consume from me in order to be a client? Make sure that you're bringing that solution to your existing clients. And number two, you're including technology and cybersecurity and maybe even AI roadmaps in your QBR conversations, because that's the easiest way to introduce some of these strategies to clients. In fact, we would sanitize a version of our red light, green light client solutions roadmap, and some of our sales team would actually show it to a client and say, hey, look, you're so red, we need to fix that. And clients would go like, well, we don't want to be red. What do we do? Just them seeing that in a visual format saying, look, you are not anywhere near our recommended posture for technology and security and all these other things. So we use that tactic to get folks to go, okay, what do we need to do? Let's prioritize it. Let's budget for it in advance so we know when we're going to roll it in, rather than asking for things in a reactive manner. Nobody has budget just in their back pocket, Rich, right? So if you're planning these things out, you're examining your percentage of penetration of your service portfolio in your existing client base, and you're getting them to consume more and more of it on the regular, doing it through QBR meetings and road mapping their technology and cybersecurity needs. Third tip would be bundle those services in terms of outcomes. So instead of saying it's our enhanced cybersecurity program or our backup solution. So for backups, I'd call it business continuity. And that includes these 5 or 6 things, right? That's that package. Cyber risk reduction or regulatory compliance. Rather than breaking these things out in kind of line items, you can always say it includes these things, but that's not how we pitch them or bill for them. We're presenting them as a business outcome with a flat fee or maybe a consumption-based fee if necessary, but we're not breaking things out in line items and saying that's $5 for this license, that's $7 for this license, that kind of thing, because that's an easy way for clients to start negotiating what we can remove because they don't like the final price. Selling on business outcome, on strategic value, and then going deeper and wider with your clients, you will realize more incremental revenue growth doing this in a consistent manner than you probably would by signing up a new client every 2 or 3 months with managed services. It's consistent, scalable growth that definitely increases company equity value when you're looking at things like an exit in the future.
Yeah, and that last point I think is the really critical one here, which is that according to pretty much any marketing expert, any marketing metric you choose to consult, it is always cheaper and easier to cross sell or upsell to an existing client than to land a net new client. And why work harder than you need to is a question I ask myself all the time. And for an MSP, one answer to that question is that I'm just going to cross sell, upsell to my existing clients. I'm going to build revenue that way. I'm not going to stop thinking about new clients as well. But this is lower hanging fruit than that. The other thing I was kind of thinking about as you were talking, Eric, and you were talking about like the grid, the spreadsheet with clients on one side and the services on the other axis. And I've seen things like that for many years now. We're starting to see vendors and distributors and marketplace. We're starting to see the logic behind that show up more in a lot of different places and get automated. And I'm thinking specifically of Pax8. Pax8 has invested huge sums of money in this next generation marketplace that they've been rolling out the last couple of years now. And one of the things that they like to tout that it will do is essentially build that spreadsheet for you in its own computer mind and point you to the lowest hanging fruit, the cross sell, the upsell opportunities in specific areas like security, if you want, for this client or that client. They are automating that process that used to require a spreadsheet in the past. Similarly, in terms of the bundling recommendation that you were making, we're seeing vendors, like ConnectWise and Kaseya. In the security world, we're seeing vendors building platforms. The idea basically in all those cases is we're going to pull some products together into a bundle, a unified offer, multiple products with one price tag for our partners to go sell to their end customers. So in both those cases, the vendor world, the marketplace world, the distributor world, they're very much buying into the advice that you're offering here and actually beginning to build it into their tools and strategies.
And hats off to them for helping the MSPs get there faster. As you know, Rich, MSPs, I mean, back in the day, like they're busy, we're busy doing things. Anything that our vendor partnerships, our distributor, our platform partnerships, marketplace partnerships can provide us to make it easier to sell, to upsell and cross sell. It benefits everybody. It benefits the end customer because they're getting, better services and solutions. It benefits the MSP. They're getting stickier and reducing churn by adding more value to that client relationship. And they're benefiting the upstream vendors and distributors and marketplace partners of these MSPs. I mean, it's good for everybody. So it's awesome to see how the channel has adjusted to meet the needs of everyone, from coming from the early days when we called what we were selling flat rate IT, and having to put together our own individual solutions into a portfolio and having to invest in hundreds if not thousands of licenses up front to get the best price, and then have to go sell our way out of it, and then figure all this stuff out, make all the mistakes on our own. we are so much more mature now that we're seeing what's driving the adoption of more of these managed services, just like in the Barracuda survey, right? So it's great to see, and I'm looking forward to how much more efficient MSPs can become as we begin adopting more and more AI and AI, agentic AI, and orchestrating AI agents for MSPs to reduce their cost of service delivery, and then also, again, become much more strategically valuable to their clients to go deeper and wider with more of these AI consultative services right behind cybersecurity. Because as you know, Rich, we got to secure the AI. That's exposing a lot of data if we do it the wrong way to some of these AI platforms.
Well, that's actually a pretty good lead in to our spotlight interview segment for this episode of the show. I have been away for a little while, but Eric has been hard at work. He was at the PAX8 Beyond conference a few weeks back. He conducted a number of interviews for us, one of which was with Mike DePalma. Mike is a familiar presence, I think, to a lot of folks in our audience and in the channel. Worked for many years at Datto. These days, he is the vice president of business development at OpenText, specifically in their security unit. Eric had a chance to sit down with him at the PAX8 Beyond show, and we're going to bring that interview to you just a few moments from now after the break. And then after the interview, I will come back and Eric and I will share a few thoughts about that conversation. Stick around, folks. We're going to be right back.
Eric Simpson here from MSP Chat, broadcasting live from PAX8 Beyond 2025 with my special guest, Mike DePalma. Mike, you're VP of Business Development at OpenText these days.
Yep. 3 months in, loving it. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. Tell everybody a little bit about your background, though, Mike, because this isn't your first rodeo here in the channel.
No, I've been in the channel a little over 10 years. Started out with Datto, worked under Rob Ray for about 8 of those years. And when he moved on and we got acquired by Kaseya, I came in and was the SVP of channel enablement for Kaseya for 3 years. And then this opportunity popped up with OpenText and just made the move in March.
Yeah.
So kind of overseeing the channel strategy program, redoing the partner program and a lot of things. So yeah, super excited.
Yeah, and you get to work a little bit more directly with partners now, or how has your role changed from what you've done previously?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot more boots on the ground talking to partners, which is what I like, right? I mean, it's cool moving up the ranks, but when, you're sitting in boardroom meetings and all that stuff, it's good, but I like to be out talking to partners more. So, yeah, a lot of it is just going to these events. We're doing just about all of them. I'm trying to get out as much as possible doing these type of interactions. And then as we're developing our partner program, I'm trying to get as much feedback from even our non-partners, because we don't want to, it's great to start with a blank slate, but I don't want to just put things in there that just check off a box and looks nice when I'm on stage. I want something that's going to move the needle. So, trying to interact with as many MSPs as possible, partners and non-partners, to say, all right, what could we do to make this, better relationship? So it's been great.
Awesome. So give us a little history of OpenText, right? Because I know that I've seen OpenText at a lot of events. I know the organization is out there marketing, but for those folks that aren't really, up to speed on all the changes and the developments and the roll-ups and acquisitions that now comprise the OpenText suite of services, can you give us a little glimpse of that?
Yeah, it's been probably the number one question I've gotten is like, okay, move to OpenText, like tell us a little bit more. But I mean, OpenText, we got 25,000 employees. So publicly traded company, very large in the enterprise space. And the cybersecurity division that I'm overseeing is the MSP channel. And so you're exactly right. A lot of it's been through acquisition. People are like, I don't think I'm an OpenText partner. Then I said, well, do you use Webroot? We own Webroot, Carbonite, Zix, Pillar for our EDR and MDR. And so what we've done is we've taken that and put it into a single platform, secure cloud. You're able to either bundle them together, whether it's email services and EDR, whatever that is, or you could buy them a la carte. And then we're also the 5th largest Microsoft reseller in North America. That's through the AppRiver acquisition. So a lot of acquisitions, bringing it together and trying to do that. And one of the advantages of being a large publicly traded company is, we don't have contracts at all with any of our products. We have free trials. And that's not just free trials if you're not a partner. It's free trials for your client. So if you have a new client wants to say, hey, let me test out the CVR, see if it's worthwhile, we can give you a free trial on that. So we really, want to emphasize that we're a very easy partner to work with, and we want to earn your business every month. So it's been quite a journey. Yeah.
I'll bet. So let's look into the future a little bit with
Yep.
me, Mike, and kind of tell me what you think the channel is migrating towards. What should MSPs be thinking about, and how do they get ahead in this kind of uncertain economic environment that we're in?
Yeah.
But what's the forward-thinking ideas that you have for partners? What should they be thinking about as they look to the future to try to, stay ahead
Yeah.
and grow their businesses?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's good is, the maturity of the channel has really shown the small business community that, like, all right, I know I need to outsource it. So the struggle for MSPs, it's such a flooded space, is how do I differentiate myself? So there's that piece of it. And so it's not, here's my stack of products, I'm like anybody else. Like, what's your special sauce as an MSP? The other piece is, though, is figuring out where margin's going to come from. Because, AI is great, all these different types of things. You've been around the channel a long time. It used to be, all right, I could build a server. I know what I'm going to make my money. Or I'm reselling a SaaS product. Here's my margin on each end. Here, it's like, okay, as things are moving to the cloud, where do I replace that revenue? And where do I do that in ways that I'm actually, serving my client? Because I know a lot of MSPs, and I used to run our MDF program, so I did a lot of end user presentations. And the fear of an MSP is, oh man, every time I call my clients, I'm trying to sell them something. My comeback to that is, well, if you're not doing your job, because some other MSP is going to come in and say, hey, are you doing regular pen testing? Hey, what's your security posture look like? And if you're not at least presenting those ideas, it's a competitive market, and you're going to see people kind of swoop in. So I think the big thing, and obviously this event is great, you're going to get a lot of good ideas and interacting, but it's that, how am I going to differentiate myself in that crowded market? Because we know they're going to be spending money. Even with the economic uncertainty, the good thing about our space is people are always going to invest in cybersecurity. So, but how are you going to get that piece of it? You know what I mean? Piece of that growth.
Right. So for an MSP that hasn't yet started on that journey to, become that new type of provider that today's SMB businesses need in terms of focusing on their cybersecurity posture and, being kind of guarding against risk and things like that. Can you walk us through like maybe 2 or 3 steps that MSPs that are considering, entering into this cybersecurity arena? Because it's almost like, back in the day, we said, well, we went from break fix to managed services, and then now we went to the cloud, and now it's cybersecurity. So how should MSPs think about evolving to meet that need?
Well, I think the messaging, a lot of people are going to market, obviously the shiny object is cybersecurity and AI, but I think the conversation could evolve into, not only am I going to keep you secure, of course, that's my job as your managed service provider, but I want to make you more productive and show them how you could work with them and not just be the doom and gloom if everything goes wrong, here's where I stand, but no, we're going to partner, and you tell me your growth goals, Mr. Business Owner, and not only am I going to protect you, but I'm going to show you ways that I could accelerate that growth and make you more productive. And that's where AI comes in. And I think that's really the selling point, and that's where the profitability is in that kind of consultative partnership, as opposed to just reselling. So yeah, you're going to put your stack together. I also would say, if you're a brand new MSP, don't overextend yourself. Get your stack, land and kind of expand. You want to make sure that you've got a good engine in place. But I think that's really where the differentiator is going to come.
Yeah, we hear a lot, Mike, about getting away from kind of technology outcomes or transactional outcomes and moving more into business outcomes, so that MSPs can become more strategically valuable to their customers. Is that what you're talking about?
100%. And you could see it. I mean, there's some MSPs that have that, and I could tell when I walk into an office, kind of the culture of that MSP, and I love doing site visits. Also, when you go and do a lunch and learn or an event, you could tell by the interactions they have with their clients. It's familial. I mean, it is like it's like you are an actual employee of that company. Like, you're that integrated there. And I think obviously the stickiness is there, but then you have champions. I mean, the best way to get new business is through referrals. Setting up a referral program and all that, it could be awkward, but when you have just a fan base of clients, they're going to sing your praises organically. I see it when you go to these events. So I always say, bring your best clients to these events, because they're going to be your champion, even if you don't ask them to. So and then a lot of that just comes through education. And they say, my MSP, not only does he protect me, he's giving me information. If there's a story in the news, he's letting me know why, hey, you're not going to be affected because here's what we're doing. That's to me the hockey stick growth opportunity.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there's tremendous opportunity if MSPs begin moving in this direction. What are a couple of things that they should watch out for? What are the pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think, kind of overextending yourself and promising services that you might not be mature enough for is one of the biggest pitfalls. And I've seen it, that people like dive in and they go to events and they sign up for all these things and they're not really ready to execute it. So I think, when I have business conversations, you really need to map out a true business plan, not, hey, I want to grow this year. And you hear that. That's great, but it means nothing.
Yeah.
Because then do you have the personnel in place? Or, a lot of vendors now, the beauty of it is you could outsource a lot of this stuff, right? Whether it's managed SOC or, MDR and those type of things, like understanding where you could partner with vendors or even an MSSP or other folks. That's the network I would grow. But to try to sit there and say, okay, sit in your vacuum and come up with a great stack, if you're not getting that feedback from folks, I've seen people overextend themselves and now all of a sudden they're in trouble.
Yeah, the community certainly has expanded a lot since, I sold my MSP back in 2007. I mean, there's a lot of partnering opportunities, teaming opportunities, outsourcing opportunities. The vendors have really come in to help MSPs, not just with a solution or training for that solution, but training to grow their business and partnering with them in the pre-sales and post-sales process, the design and architecture process.
Yeah.
That's like, I've never experienced an industry quite like this where everyone feels like the rising tide really lifts all ships, instead of being very kind of protectionist, like, well, that's my special sauce. There's no secrets anymore.
No.
It's how do we get ahead together? And at the end of the day, Mike, I think you would agree, it's like the end customer is the one that we're all serving, right? Through the channel, through the MSPs. And the MSPs always keep that relationship top of mind. That's why I think they're a little bit risk averse sometimes to move forward in a new direction, because they don't want to guinea pig anything.
Yeah.
So there's like this chicken and egg thing, right? You've got to get out there and you've got to, look at other opportunities, talk to other folks, work with your vendor partners to try to put that stack deal, like you said, but really to understand what it really costs you to deliver that stack and not overextend, like you said, because if it costs me more to deliver the stack than I can charge for my clients, then the math just doesn't work out. I'm not going to grow.
Yeah.
Right. So any thoughts on kind of walking into kind of a stack pricing situation where I'm looking at what my stack currently contains, identifying what that costs me, and then we talk a lot about sprawl, right? Technology sprawl, platform sprawl, like looking at other solutions that maybe I can consolidate some of these things and make it simpler for my team. Because that's the second thing that I think MSPs think about. First thing is good for my customers. Second is good for my team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you see that?
Yeah, I think that's a key component. It's kind of when you're looking at a vendor or anything, it's total cost of ownership. And that comes down to, integrations or how much your team is going to spend. I would give, if I was starting an MSP, the first thing I would do is join a peer group. And there are a lot of great ones out there, whether it's Evolve or True Methods Peer and all those things, because that allows you to say, where do I stack up against my competitors? It's very difficult to price that out. If you're coming in new, and vendors are going to tell you, all of us vendors are going to tell you everything's great, right? But to sit down and open your books with another MSP who says, okay, well, how many techs do I need to hire once I get to this seat size, right? And is that off? Well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe my delivery method or maybe my stack of products is so convoluted that it's hindering me from growth. Like, you really have to become more of a business owner than the tech. And like a lot of MSPs get in the space because they love the technology, but unfortunately that'll take you to one portion and you got to kind of move away from that, become a business owner and start to think of things like that if you really want to grow. So that's my tip. I'll give the blanket endorsement of joining a peer group or coming to this. I've done more introductions peer-to-peer, MSP to MSP in the last 6 months than I did in the previous 10 years. Because now you could see nobody's guarded. Like, there's ways, whether it's just picking your brain or outsourcing work or, hey, compliance as a service, everybody needs to do it. You got to be an expert in it. There are MSPs that focus on it and work with other MSPs. That goes to that, is it smarter for me to buy all these products, hire this team, or maybe this portion of it I could outsource it. Let me focus on what I do really well. It's really understanding your unique value proposition as an MSP and where you strive, and then where, the other folks can maybe outsource help.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So let me take it one step further.
Yep.
Exit strategy, right? So as we're thinking about MSP, the evolution, the opportunity, the risk, and all that, how should MSPs be considering what they're doing now and its impact in maybe their exit strategy in 5 years or 10 years or whatever that is. So, there's things that, we don't want to make mistakes early on because it's hard to kind of, restructure something when you have a pending opportunity for an exit, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing so much of that, as you know. I mean, it's crazy to see the growth in the channel and the amount of M&A that's happening, and seeing that evolution. It's almost kind of lagging a little bit behind where the vendors were. Like we saw all that consolidation and things maybe 5-6 years ago. Now we're seeing that on the MSP side, which is great. I mean, and you're seeing a lot of PE money come into the space. But yeah, I mean, look, it's really understanding your business, to your point, and so that if you're presenting to a potential buyer, you're laying out not only where you are. I know sometimes contracts are a bad word in this, but if you want to 10x your valuation, you need to have contracts with your clients. You just do. That will be the first thing they're going to see, and that's what they're going to want to understand and understand the market that you serve, whether it's vertical specific or regional. That's where you're going to see, because a lot of times, like, yeah, I'm very profitable, but not necessarily attractive. You want that money coming in through monthly reoccurring revenue, so that it's guaranteed money, and you do want to have those folks under contracts, whether it's 1 year or longer. You just need to.
Yeah, and I always say everybody has to be on the same contract or agreement, and everybody's got to be trued up.
Yeah,
because you don't want the I have 80% of my folks are on, like, they're not trued up to my current, like what I would charge the client I sign up tomorrow.
Yes.
And these guys are getting, so sometimes, we talk about, well, you have to evaluate your customer list as well, right? Because if you have, D, E, and F customers.
It's easy for me to say, I'm not a business owner, but yeah, you do have to fire your clients.
Yeah, you gotta,
they're not profitable. But to that point, a lot of times MSPs, they start out and they have kind of an a la carte model.
Yeah.
So but you need to standardize on a package or several packages. You have to. And even if you have those folks on a legacy, you have to have a path to get them there. Because if you're coming in and you're just offering clients different things, again, as an investor, it's less attractive than saying, okay, I got 100 clients and here's the stack that they're on. That's something they can almost guarantee on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the buyer. I don't want to buy myself a job or have to fix a bunch of things. And the other problem is, if you do have an MSP that needs a lot of work, then that's definitely going to negatively impact the offer that you get, if you get an offer at all.
Right.
Right. So, and that's what the astute buyers are looking for, is like, where can I add some value and increase, the profitability of this company? And I think the more opportunities that they have to do that, then that affects the offer that they get. So if you're operating on, a standardized solution stack, like you said, what it costs you to deliver, and it can scale.
Yes.
Then you're in the best position to command the best offer, I think.
Yeah. And the standardization is key too, with the vendors that you work with.
Yeah.
And I know there's vendor sprawl, and I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but the simpler and, stack that you have, and you're not using multiple backup vendors, you're not using, because again, now all of a sudden this company's going to buy you and they're going to want to standardize, and they're saying, well, hey, half your clients are on this, half your clients are on this. How do I train my techs? Your techs are experts, so standardizing within the vendors that you work with, and consolidating where it makes sense. And there's, that's kind of where the industry's headed is key.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Great conversation, Mike. I
Always.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So for folks that want to get in touch with you, want to learn more about OpenText, where would you send them?
Yeah, I mean, I love people to reach out to me directly. DePalma, DePalma at opentext.com. Feel free to send me a LinkedIn request, and let's start the conversation there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. Well done, Eric, flying solo for that interview and others, both at the PAX8 event and just a few days later at an Ingram Micro event that you went to. So thank you very much for keeping the wheels moving and the show moving forward as I was away for a little while. It is always nice when you get a thought leader, a vendor leader's confirmation for what you think and have been telling the audience on the show. And I mean, what did we talk about in part 1 at the beginning of this episode, if not the importance of strategic advice and business consulting and taking AI seriously? And all of that came up in the conversation with Mike. That's absolutely where folks at the VP level at OpenText cybersecurity certainly are thinking as well. And with good reason. That really is an important part of the plan for MSPs who want to remain relevant and competitive and keep growing.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, kind of we I've known Mike for years back, in the Datto days, and that's kind of where we started building a relationship together. And it's just, and Rich, how nice it is to have someone that can speak to the value proposition from an MSP's perspective and give guidance and advice around what's working for MSPs, what they're understanding really deeply, what their pains and challenges are. And, it allowed me to really pick his brain in ways that I don't normally get to do with a lot of folks that, that I happen to, have conversations with or interview. So that was really, really nice. And I loved his, advice about joining a peer group. So that was great there at the end. It's like, yes, MSPs, that is one area that I definitely got a lot of value in when we had our IT practice, then MSP practice, and we were part of the HTG one peer group, the very inaugural peer group, which then was later acquired by ConnectWise years later. And we got a tremendous amount of value because we were sitting there and working through challenges and coming up with solutions with, non-competitive other MSPs who were there to help each other grow and had everyone's, best interests in mind as they were sharing very openly. And that's really where I got my first taste, Rich, of, just how awesome the MSP channel is, where the vast majority of folks are willing to share and help each other out. It's one of the things that I love best about, this community.
Well, as it turns out, in an upcoming upcoming edition of my blog, Channelholic, I've got an article on that topic, actually, based on a conversation with Abraham Garver of Focused Investment Banking, an M&A advisor to MSPs, and he's got some data that suggests MSPs who participate in peer groups actually sell. They get higher multiples, higher sale prices. We won't get into that today, but that's coming up in Channelholic. So there are lots of good reasons to be part of a peer group, including the sale price, what you're going to get at exit. Now, with that leaves us with time for just one last thing, ladies and gentlemen. And we are recording this episode of the show on July 17th. Do you know what July 16th was, Eric?
I don't, Rich. What was July 16th? Other than
July 16th was AI Appreciation Day.
Oh, my AI didn't let me know that. What's going on?
Yeah, too modest, apparently. It turns out, and this is kind of the story of AI Appreciation Day in and of itself is kind of interesting. It was invented 4 years ago by filmmakers in Germany. They made a movie about AI taking over the world, and as sort of a marketing gimmick, they declared that July 16th, 2021 was the first AI Appreciation Day. Something like 14 months later, ChatGPT arrives, and all of a sudden there is actually a reason for the industry to kind of glom on to that idea. And so last year in particular, and this year even more so, you're starting to see more attention, more vendors kind of, issuing quotes and press releases around AI Appreciation Day. Here's something that someday I might appreciate from AI, but I'm not sure I'm quite this appreciative of AI today. This it comes from an experiment done at Johns Hopkins University. They were sort of curious to see if you marry up AI with a robot and have it do gallbladder surgery, can it do that pretty much on its own? And they took, real gallbladders, not real patients, but they actually took the organ out of dead bodies. They put the AI and the robot to work performing gallbladder surgery. And by golly, 8 out of 8 times, everything went the way it was supposed to go. The procedures took a little bit longer. There was more reasoning and correcting and thinking going on, but the AI-powered robotic surgeons were able to do gallbladder surgery with a 100% success rate, which I appreciate as very interesting. But Eric, it's going to be a while before I let AI and robots operate on me.
Well, Rich, that whole gallbladder surgery topic I've got a little experience with that, and I'll say right now, I am not anywhere close to saying yes. Put me in the auto doc and let it have invasive surgery on my body, like you say. But we'll get there one day. We will get there. We've got full body scanners. We're doing robotic surgery now with surgeons doing it. I guess the thing that I would say is if you're gonna elect to have a procedure done like that, just hope that there's, surgeons standing by and monitoring and they can jump in. Did something go awry, let's say.
Yeah, it's going to take a little time until I trust a technology that occasionally recommends rocks as a great pizza topping to put a scalpel in its hand and go to work on me. So, but it is, it's going to be a helpful thing down the road for other people. And folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to be back in a week's time with another episode of this podcast for you. Until then, I will just remind you this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means that if you're listening to the show right now, but you'd like to check us out on video, you can go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat there. If you're watching us on YouTube, but you're into audio podcasts, go to Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever it is you get your audio podcasts. Look for MSP Chat there. You're going to find us there as well. And wherever it is you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people discover and enjoy the show just as much as you do. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the also great Riley Simpson. They are both part of the team with us here at Channel Master. They are ready, willing, and able to help you create an excellent podcast for your business. And podcasts, folks, just a tiny, tiny little piece of what we do for our clients at Channel Master. If you want to get the big picture of how we help vendors get more successful in the MSP channel, you want to go to www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization called MSP Mastered. That is Eric working directly with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. And you can learn more about that organization at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, we thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a week. Until then, folks, please remember, as we always encourage you to, you can't spell channel without MSP.